Has it got me there? Is it jumping? Yeah.
Yep.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Well, a man who needs no introduction, making an emotional return to Britain, Barry Sheene, welcome home. We've got some big heroes, Barry Sheene and Wayne Gardner, two former world champions.
Barry Sheene is down in about 5th place, and really Barry Sheene has certainly changed. He's got Barry Sheene right on his tail, and the man with all our good wishes on his shoulders. Barry Sheene in 4th spot. Barry is Sheene is up there. Sheene is at his shoulder, and Sheene drifts inside, and they come whistling up, and the checker flag falls, and the winner is Barry Sheene. Absolutely wonderful.
Hello there, my name is Fred Warmsley. I've been tuning and building racing Manx Nortons for about 50 years, and I just need to tell you about what I think is the most iconic Manx Norton on the planet at the moment. It's a true story, but it can be a bit complicated, but I'll do my best to explain it to you. So in 2002 I had two Manx Nortons that I had built. One was ridden by the world famous Barry Sheene, who was a really good friend of mine, and the other one was ridden by a British classic racer called John Cronshaw. Same again, is world famous, a very, very good rider. And we were doing the season, and the one Barry Sheene rode, he just rode at some meetings in England that was, they were support races for the Grand Prix at Donington Park. And on the bike that I built for him, he actually won back-to-back races at Donington Park that year, even though he didn't feel very well, and he was just starting with a really bad illness that not really anybody knew about until later. So we were doing also with John Cronshaw, we were doing the European Championship, and the John Cronshaw bike, which John rode at Donington and then different places, scoring points for the championship. Anyway, the last round of the championship, and we were in with a chance of winning it, was in a place called Most in Czechoslovakia. So John and I set off, and we went from Hull to Rotterdam on the boat, and from Rotterdam to Most, which is, I don't know, about 800 kilometres, which is a fair old drive in an old Ford Cargo that did 55, 60 mile an hour. But anyway, we got there with quite a bit of trouble in practice, and we had to pinch some bits off Barry's bike to get John's bike going as we needed it for the race. So that is what we did, and we did the final race, and John actually won it, and we won the European Championship outright. So that was good. John was European champion, and we were good. And anyway, we were sort of celebrating back in the paddock with the bikes, and the mobile phone rang, and it was Barry on the phone, Barry Sheene on the phone, and he said, Fred, he said, I've decided to do Goodwood. Can you do it for me? And Goodwood Revival was a race that Barry had ridden my bikes all the time and been done very well in. But because he was ill, he wasn't going to do it. But he rang me on this day, on the Sunday afternoon, to say he wanted to do it. And I had two Manx Nortons, one that had just finished the race, and I thought maybe wouldn't last a full weekend at Goodwood. And the other one, Barry's own bike, that he raced, well, it was my bike, but Barry raced it for me. That just wasn't up to racing at all. It was quite, a few bits missing off it on the other bike. So, mainly the engine part. So, anyway, I had a quick think in my head, and I said, oh, Barry, I said, you weren't going to do it. And he said, yeah, but I've decided I want to do it, Fred. He said, can you do it for me? And I said, bloody hell, Barry. He said, yeah, go on, I'll do it. Great, Fred, he said. He was on the Gold Coast in Australia, and I was in Most in Czechoslovakia, and he said, this was Sunday afternoon, and he said, right, Fred, I'll see you at Goodwood on Thursday. All right, Barry, see you then. And off we went. So John Cronshaw, being the good chap that he is, we just got everything thrown in the van and set off back for England. We couldn't celebrate John's win or anything. And we got back, we drove all that way, this slow van. We got to Rotterdam. We managed to get an earlier boat than what we'd booked, but we got across and we arrived in Hull, and then drove back here to my home. And my workshop here was a Sealy G50 that I'd already prepared for Wayne Gardner to ride at Goodwood. And I just got it prepared because I knew I wouldn't have much time when I got back from Czechoslovakia. So anyway, I sort of came in and kissed my wife hello, and went in my workshop and sorted out a bike to take for Barry to ride. And the only bike I could sort of get ready quickly was the Cronshaw bike, which was up and running. But I didn't think that the engine would do the whole thing, so I needed a plan B. And about 6 months before, I'd built a brand new engine for a very good friend of mine called George Cohen. And he had his engine, and George was going to Goodwood as he always did. So I thought, I know what I'll do. I phoned George up and said, George, need to borrow your engine, you know, and I explained to him the situation. And he said, oh Fred, he said, just save the trouble. He said, I'll just bring my bike. And I said, George, Barry won't ride your bike. He needs to ride a bike that I've built, and that he needs to ride a bike, one of my bikes. He won't ride yours. I said, I just need your engine, George. Just please take your engine out and bring it to Goodwood. Yeah, all right, said George, and he was a bit down in the dumps about it. But anyway, when we arrived at Goodwood, there was George with his bike and with his engine, sorry. And so we just put it to one side, and Barry went out in practice, and sure enough, 2 laps into practice, the engine in my bike that had done all year was worn out, and it just stopped. It cried enough. It just stopped. So anyway, Barry did qualify on it. So we brought it in and just swapped the engine over. So it was a bit of a hybrid bike really, because it had quite a few parts on it that you know, a different wrong engine, you know, from what it had been running and different things. But it was the bike that Barry rode in his last ever race. And on the Saturday he finished second to Wayne Gardner, who was on my G50. And on the Sunday he won the race with a slightly bigger gap than it was on the Saturday. So Barry actually won the weekend overall on this particular bike. And that bike, when I got it back here, because it won the race as it was, I wanted to keep the bike. And I said to my good friend George, I said, George, sell me the engine. And he said, no Fred, it's a famous engine now. No, I want it back, I'm not selling it. I said, all right George. So part of the deal with him was that I would take the engine out of my bike, strip it down, and anything it needed I would replace. And which I did, and then George had his engine back. So I just sort of had by the time I put all the bits back on it, I had what was really the Cronshaw bike. So I never thought that the bike would ever be the same thing again as when the last race that Barry rode it in. So I did sell it, and then it's funny, you know, the twists and turns as time goes on. You never think, but the bike had been on my mind for a while because I knew it was in Jersey, and the man who owned it, a lovely man called Mike Rowbottom, he owned it, and but he wasn't really a biker. He liked his cars and this and that. So the bike was just kept in a bit of a damp place really, and got a bit of weather on it, and sat there for quite a while. So you know, and I did make 1 or 2 offers for it, but anyway, I just thought I'd never have the bike as it was. And then, unfortunately, my good friend George Cohen, he passed away unexpectedly with poor old George had cancer, and so George's bike with the Barry Sheene engine in it came up for sale. A colleague of mine bought it, put another engine in George's bike and kept the Barry Sheene engine. So as the bike, as time went on, the bike did come up for sale, and and some colleagues of mine managed to buy it, and I secured for them the Barry Sheene engine, which brings us really up to date. There's, you know, you'll see some footage of the bike arriving at my house in a van. Not been to my house for, I don't know how long, 20 years or so or whatever. No more than that, but anyway, it doesn't really matter. So right now, I am going to return the bike to actually how it was when Barry Sheene lifted his head under the checkered flag at Goodwood in 2002 when he won his last race ever. And he really wasn't a well man then, but you know, he's a tough guy and used to racing, and I think when the adrenaline gets up, all your tiredness and illness sort of fades away when you're a world champion, as Barry was. So we can now we can rebuild this bike exactly how it was, and I think it's just a tribute to the man, and it's a really nice bike. So I'm going to show you the bike now. You'll have seen it on the camera because it's behind me on its stand. Everybody, this is a very exciting moment for me. In this van there is the bike that Barry Sheene won his last ever race on. Although it's not complete because on the day, he's come back here after 20 years of being away, and when Barry rode the bike there was a lot of stuff on it that didn't belong to the actual bike as it had been raced in Europe. So, but I've got all the stuff and I'm going to turn it back into the very thing that when Barry crossed the line at Goodwood and lifted his head to win his last race ever, it'll be that bike again. So we're looking forward to it, and I can't wait to get started on it, to be honest. So here we go. Here it is, the very machine. But unfortunately it's not been looked after very well since it's been out of my control. But there's nothing we can't do to it, and we'll have it back in the pristine condition it was in when Barry last rode it. And you know, as any Barry Sheene fan will know, it's 20 years this year since the road Barry passed away. It's actually about 20 years and 1 month now. So it'll be a bit emotional doing it, but a lot of memories, and I think if he was here, he'd be very happy that it was happening. So here we go. We need to get it out of the van. Here it is in all its glory. It's quite an historic machine, this. I got it. So yeah, here we are, we've got it out of the van. It is a bit worse for wear, it's not been looked after so good, I don't think. But this bike, I actually built it here at my home, in my workshop. It won the European Championship, and then it went on to win Barry's last race for him. So it's quite a thing. So I'm just going to pop it in here for now, and then I'll sort of gather my thoughts and see what we're going to do with it, have a good look round it, and I'll pull it to bits and get it sorted out again. Yeah, she's all there. Well, it will be. There's quite a few things changing over on it to be back as it was, but it's I've still got all the bits, saved them all this time. So I've dreamt of this bike coming back a few times and making it back like it was just a Honda Barry, and that's what we're going to do. So we'll be keeping you updated as the thing goes along when I start to strip it and that, and hopefully that when you do see the final video that you'll enjoy it.
The Lennox Cup, here we go from 4 wheels to 2, a race for 500cc motorcycles between 1962 and 1967. A chance to see legendary racer Barry Sheene in action once again.
So here is the bike. Brought it in yesterday, and the stand that it's on is the stand. It's a bit like a dry dock really. It's the stand that this bike was actually built on when it's brand new. When I started them days, when I started to build a brand new bike, I would put just the frame on this stand, and then I could build the bike all around it, and we could just lift it off and start it up. So that's what I would do with this. The engine that's in it at the moment is the engine that, it's the John Cronshaw engine that really won the European Championship. And just here, the engine here is the engine that I borrowed from my dear friend George Cohen, God bless you George. And it's back here, so this engine, and it says on here, I don't know if we can have a close up of that or what, but anyway, it actually says on here what it is. And another good friend of mine, a good friend, Mick Hemmings, who's also passed away, God bless you Mick, he had a really good engraver, so he said, give us that Fred, he said, I'll get it bloody engraved, you know, and then everybody knows what that engine's done. So I give it to him, and when I checked the engine over to George, screwed it back on, and there it is. So my task now is, the bike it's not in very nice condition. All these parts, the black parts, they're all magnesium aluminium, and they don't like, it oxidises, they don't like being in the weather too much. There it is. That's not actually the front brake that Barry used. I have actually still got the front wheel that Barry used. And the swinging arm under there, that's the one that was in the bike when Barry rode it. And quite a few gear levers, all sorts of other bits and pieces that will make it back into the bike as it was. So that's my next task, but I've got to strip it down completely because the frame is chrome moly. It's T45, it's a good American spec chrome moly steel. So we're going to try and treat it to kill the rust and then repolish it. Not highly polished, I never had my bikes highly polished on the frame, but I left it like that. People used to think I did it because paint was heavy and I didn't want the weight of it, but that's not true. The good thing about when you run a bike like this, if there's any cracks that appear, because it's a thin wall tube, lightweight race frame, then you can see the cracks straight away and do something about it. And when, with a busy racing bike, when you know you're taking the wheels in and out, putting them on stands, you know the frame's painted, it soon gets scratched and it looks a mess. So that is how to run a race bike, in my opinion. So I will be keeping a record of this so everybody can see it. And what we'll be doing is take that engine out, I'll strip the bike down, get the frame all sorted and start again. And every nut and bolt will all be sorted out. The forks are seized up, it'll have its own front wheel back in it, different bits and pieces, and it'll have that engine back in it. And but we'll record it as we go along, and hopefully anybody that watches it will enjoy it.
With a great deal of interest as they boil into the first corner, and it's Mick Hemmings with Duncan Fitchett flashing right.
Hello there, this is just a bit of an update on what's happening with this motorcycle. I've already started stripping a lot of the bits out, but it's quite interesting really, because when I built this bike on this bike stand, there's quite a few titanium fasteners on it, and as I've been pulling it in bits, it just brings back memories, and I actually remember making the specific bits for it. So yeah, I'm enjoying it really. I've got most of the stuff just on a bench in here. It'll all clean up and go back together as it was, which I'm quite happy about. So we're just going to commence now. I want to take the front wheel out, and we'll lift the engine and box out, and take the swinging arm out. It's virtually ready then to get the thing, just put the frame on my big bench there and try and get it polished up. I have found some 400 grit Henry tape, which I didn't think you could buy, but I got some, and I've just started cleaning the frame a little bit here, and it'll come back as good as it was, which I'm really happy about. I was a bit worried about the frame, but it's going to be okay. We'll take this, my son-in-law here, Jason, we're going to take the front wheel out. Come on, Jay. Just pop them in that tray there, Jay. But if you just hold it there, we can just take this off. Just step back a little bit. That's the wheel spindle. Just pull this out. Just lower it down that way, Jay. That's it, that's the front wheel out of it. That front wheel will not be going back in because it wasn't the front wheel that was in the bike on the day that it was used, but I have got the front wheel. It was just when we were racing in Europe, we had a spare front wheel built up in case the front brake went off. And so when Barry won his last race on it, it had a front wheel in with new brake linings to give you, because he liked a good feel of a good brake. So we're just going to take the swinging arm out of it now. I've already slackened it off. That's it. You can see I greased it when it went in, can't you? Because it's come out okay. That's it. Just pick all that bits up, Jay. This swinging arm will not be going back in it, because it wasn't in it when Barry rode it. But it's this swinging arm here that is going back in it, and it's got quite a unique. It's not Norton actually. It's a Sealy type fitment for the back wheel spindle and chain adjusters. So it's something we made for Europe so we could put a fatter back tyre in it. So this swinging arm will be going in it because it was in the bike when Barry won his last race, bless him. So I've saved it all these years. So now we're going to lift the engine out now. This is a bit of a bigger job. Just screw that there, Jay. We'll see how we go on if that just comes out. Put that in that tray then. Fix it. Keep them all together. There it is. That's better. It's loose now.
Ready?
Well, that's it. Now then, just leave it like that. That's it. I'll come round there now.
That's a nice size.
You want to pop it on your feet. Right. You get hold of the back. I think I've got the lion's share here. Oh, good lad, thank you very much.
10. Pivot.
There it is. That engine will not be going back in it. It's a 95 bore short stroke. This engine actually won the European Championship for John Cronshaw. We blew the MV off in Italy. The Italians were not happy at all, but that's what we did. This is the engine that's going back in it. And yeah, there we go. This is the end of another instalment, I think, on the returning this bike to its glory days.
And Telfer, ex-Malcolm Uphill, Manx Norton. So they are really sweeping at it.
Hello there, everybody. I've just starting of the engine. I'm going to strip it out, and I think it might just want cleaning out because I rebuilt it before it was parked up. But the frame here, this is going to be finished off, being polished tomorrow. So when we get all that done, it'll be good. And as the engine comes apart, we'll add to everything a little bit, and there we go. So I do think the engine will be good. So watch this space.
Right-hander sweeping over the bumps. You can see the bike shake and ripple. Barry Sheene has certainly changed the rear suspension on that. It's not shaking as much as it was yesterday. But
the next project with the bike, the next bit, we've just got the frame back from, well, I did a lot of it, a friend of mine finished polishing it, but it's polished everywhere now, back as it was, so it really looks good. I've also put the suspension units in it that Barry used on the day, and it's got the swinging arm in it that it's just special for this bike, and it's back now as Barry used it. The thing about the swinging arm, this one here is a standard Norton swinging arm, and this area here is for adjusting the back chain. So that is a Norton type swinging arm. Now this swinging arm, as you can see between the two, is totally different. This has a sliding tube in it, and it's like a Sealy type swinging arm for adjusting it. The reason it had this in, when we did the European Championship, we had a wider swinging arm made to put a fatter tyre in, which was better for some circuits. But because, as I said earlier on, we were in a hurry to get a bike to Goodwood, there wasn't time to change the swinging arm or anything, so just left it as it was, and it worked really well. So it's all part of this bike being back how it was on that day. It was only a bike for the weekend, but but it's going to be permanently back as it was. And also the I'm on with the engine as well. I've started to clean it out. It was all seized up really with Castrol R. The problem with Castrol R is that the oil, when it's been stood in an engine for 20 years, it just solidifies and just goes really stiff and you can't move it. So I've had to strip it all out and clean it all out, wash it out with petrol, and it's virtually ready to go back together now. I've done all the cam box, which is up here. This is the cam box for the engine. It was virtually seized, but you can see now that it's nice and free and it's ready to be built back into the engine. As soon as I've done that, I can the engine plates are going to be polished and I can sort of start to rebuild it, put it back together more. But my next job on it, I think I'll put the fork yokes back in and put new oil seals in the forks, put the forks back on. So it's just an update really how we're doing with the bike. I've got to put a new back tyre on the back wheel and clean that up and get it in. The front wheel that Barry used on the day, that's been picked up this weekend and I will have it on, I don't know, about Wednesday. So I'll be able to commence sorting that out and that'll all be good. So there'll be another update in a day or two.
Into the chicane they come, bobbing through a back marker, out to the edge, lets the bike drift away, so they're really on the limit now as the bike starts to lift. Bill Swallow is in there going hard, pitch it in third place, so Jackson...
Yeah, we've now got back mudguard in, units, that bit's all finished now, so we just got to get the back wheel done, which is over here. This is the back wheel. When we were running it in 02, we sealed all the spokes up and ran them with tubeless, and scrutineers and people didn't like it, but this bike's been stood 20 years and when I took the back wheel out it's still got air in it, so that's how good it was. So it's all ready for a new back tyre. I've been shopping, got some new piston rings and seals and bits and pieces for the engine. The cylinder heads here are all serviced and ready to go. The back brakes serviced, so I've got a day today just finishing all these little bits off and it'll be well on its way then. So I'll come back to you when it's all done and we're ready to put the engine in. So I thought I'd just show you the cylinder head. It's got my signature on it, and when I took the cylinder head off and I turned it over, it's funny these jobs, things just bring back memories, because written on the inside here is just that it's a 90 bore 90 and it's engine number 62 GC, which is George Coyne. So it is the engine that George lent to me for Barry to use in his last race. So yeah, it's quite a historical moment really, putting this back together, and yeah, mixed emotions, but there we are.
And picking the bike up and thrashing it into the left hand, going down one in the gearbox and then up two very rapidly. You can see hand, foot and eye working away. Tim Jackson is there, Swallow's giving him a bad time. Sheene is up there, Sheene is at his shoulder and Sheene drifts it right the way out there, and Barry Sheene now leads the race.
Another day. This is, I don't know how many days I've worked on it now, but it seems a lot. But the back wheel's in now, done, new tyre on it, mudguards on, rear shocks. I've just started doing the front end. I've put the fork yokes in, so I'm just doing that. The engine is now finished, it's got the mag on, the ignition timing's all done, everything's ready for the engine to go in. Engine plates are away being polished. I'll get them back tomorrow hopefully. And what is it today? So Wednesday today, so come weekend the engine will be back in and stuff like that. So just cleaning everything up. At the moment I'm doing servicing the forks. I mean, we are going to use this bike again, not for racing but for demonstrations and different things. So yeah, the fork seals have gone really hard, so I'm servicing the forks. These are the famous Norton road holders, and I do these with, over the years I've got my own brew of fork oil, and these ran best with number 8 oil in them. It's the standard Norton rod holder forks, you know, 2-way damp tally rods, and there's lots of people nowadays running different modern forks with cylinders inside them out of modern forks and stuff like that. But these are the ones, they weren't called road holders for nothing. If I asked John Cronshaw, who's a world famous motorcycle racer, ridden everything from BSA Gold Stars right through all the English race bikes, Works MVs, on the 60s. I don't know how many racing miles he's done, but if you said to John, or I said to him, John, what's the best handling bike you've ever ridden? He would say, without a doubt, and I'm very sure he would say, Fred's Norton, and that's what he would say. And the first time Barry Sheene had a ride on one of my Nortons, he came to Mallory Park, flew in his helicopter to test it before Donington, and he came in the paddock and he pushed the bike at the front, pushed it at the back, and said, I can't ride that fucking thing. And I said, all right Barry, it's failed the paddock test, go and have a fucking ride on it. So off he went. He did about 10 laps. We had a clock on him, and he actually broke the classic lap record, first time he ever rode one of my Nortons at Mallory Park. And he came in and he said, can't believe that, how well he'd handled. So, you know, it's Norton's got it right. I don't think people need to bother with all this special new stuff, personally. So on we're going, putting new seals in, set it up, number 8 oil, and I will guarantee this bike will handle perfect.
Being well and truly lapped by the star champion. Over the line they go, and they are place swapping again as they go down into Madgwick. Sheene out in front.
Right, this is an important bit. We're just putting this engine and gearbox back in this bike. It's the first time it's been in since September 2002.
Yeah,
Do you want to move that on?
yeah.
Are you okay? Just hold it there.
Yep, got it.
So yes, first time it's been in this bike since 2002, and it was only in it for the weekend when Barry won his last ever race. Just want to go forward a bit, forward. There it is. That's the first time this has been in this bike, and it's going to stay there now because it's all come back together as it was.
The corners, Sheene lets it drift nicely back up in front. Gardner tangles with him and battles with him. They are now opening the taps, and the sheer utter world championship skill of these two riders is making this Goodwood track really come alive.
The last piece of the jigsaw for this Goodwood Sheene bike is in the back of the little car. It's the front wheel that was actually in the bike on the day when we were racing in 02. We did the European Championship. We did the championship and Goodwood, but the brake that was in the bike after the European Championship, it was a bit worn out, and Barry liked his brakes really keen, so I put this wheel in for Goodwood. This was a spare wheel. We kept one all the time that was relined and ready to go, just in case, you know, drum brakes could just go off anyway. So this is what I put in, and after Goodwood I took it out and put its own front wheel back in it again. So a friend of mine, I sold this to a friend of mine, and he sent it up, and I've just picked it up and going to put it in the bike, and that's the last bit. It's really exactly the bike that Barry rode on the day.
And now, with 7 laps completed, coming through, the last lap flag is out, coming through to the checkered flag, Sheene or Gardner. Who's it going to be? It's Barry Sheene in front. Sheene coming into the chicane first. Gardner going for it. Gardner really winding it up. Sheene looks over his left shoulder, looks straight into Gardner's eyes, and they come whistling up, and the checkered flag falls, and the winner is Barry Sheene. Absolutely wonderful.
Okay, now the bike's nearly finished now. I've been working on it a lot. It's just one of them things I have to get done. It's on my mind all the time, this bike. It's got so many memories. But anyway, she's nearly done. So as you can see, I've just got to sort the front wheel out. I'll just go to that in a minute. It's even got understand this, isn't it? Huh? It's even got Barry's gear lever on it. I don't know. I just saved all the stuff that were personal to him, and it's come round and he's going back on the bike and making it what it was. So you can see there, that was it. I made that special. I had to keep getting it warm and bending it a bit. He just, when Barry rode race bikes, he didn't want to move his upper leg or anything. He just liked to do all his gear changes on his ankle, and that was it. He'd had to be right, and it took us ages. They're on splines and they move quite a way, but it's sort of half a spline, and anyway, that's where he wanted it, the distance in and everything. And you can see now it's got this swinging arm in it that was just used that weekend in this bike. So there she is. All I've got to do now is I've got to do the front wheel, which is just here on the bench. I got it out of the car, as you can see, yesterday. It's been on its travels, but if you look at the front wheel, this is how it's come to me. I have to clean all this up. But it's got the silicone seals on the spokes, like the back wheel, and one wheel denoting it. It's one of the spokes at the bottom, the nut on the spokes, painted red. And people used to look at that and scratch their head and say, what's all that? Why is that red? You know, there's one on the back as well. But what it was, because we could move the tyre on the rim easy without a tubing, this spoke, if I balance the wheel without the tyre on, that's the heaviest part of the wheel. So if I put a tyre on, and it was really heavy at this point, I could deflate the tyre, let it down and turn it round a bit. I could actually get it vertically so there were no weights on at all, just by moving the weight of the tyre away from the weight of the rim. But there it is. So anyway, I'm going to, hopefully today, I'm going to get this cleaned up, put a brand new tyre and tube on it. It's going back in the bike for the first time since 2002, and I'm going to finish the front end of the bike off, and hopefully there'll be some big strong lads here, and we're going to lift it off that stand. I'll take it outside and see if it'll start. So, well, it will start. I'll fire it up. So there you are. That's the latest stage. I think really should be done today.
Barry, many congratulations.
Yeah, I'm really pleased. It's great fun, you know. I love coming here. I really enjoy racing here. It's great to have Wayne here because we did good mates and had a good laugh, and you know, we ride close together and we have good fun. It doesn't matter if he wins or I win. It's good, you know, and it's great for motorbikes.
Right, this is the next stage. As you can see, the bike's off its assembly bench, the one on wheels. Me and my big strong grandson Danny, we managed to get it off that onto this bench. Everything's looking really good. I'm going to just take the top nuts off the forks, and I'm going to put the famous number 8 oil in it again, and then it's nearly done really. Not took the originality off it from how it was, so it's looking really nice, and I've just got this to do and just sort out the carburettor a little bit, float height and different things. Going to get it outside and fire it up, and that'll be the first time it's run in since Barry last rode it, since he he rode into the park for me at Goodwood in 2002. It's the first time it's run as it was then. This like a complete bike, the wheel, engine, everything that I've put into it. It's just all back again. So the next video will be the thing being started up.
I really enjoy it. I think it's really, I do one race a year. If I did one race a year, it would just be here, that would be it.
Here we go. The big moment has come. It's all finished. We're going to take it outside and see if it'll start. So there we go. I'm sure it will, but we'll give it a try. Just get the stand, Kate.
Yeah.
Let's modify that stand for the swinging arm. You're going now.
I'm just going to go here.
Right.
Ready?
Yeah. Yeah, so it finally started. I'm a bit too old. What am I? Nearly 77. I'm a bit too old for doing this, but we just it started well anyway, and it runs well. So that's it. First time it's run since 2002. Barry won his last race on it. So there we are. She's up and running, and all's good.
That was good, wasn't it?
Certainly was.
Do you want to grab the stand now?
Yeah.
WD is all over tomorrow.
Well done, Papa.
Knock it down.
Well done.
I'll run in again. As it was for one weekend, wasn't it? That's all. One weekend only.
Barry.
Great work. All right. I did enjoy watching it. Not very nice.
Final call for up.
Wings the throttle wide and goes for it and sticks his hand up, and Barry Sheene wins here at Goodwood with Bill Swallow, the most gallant second place you've seen in a long time. Absolutely superb racing by those 5 men up in front. So the winner, Barry Sheene, fastest lap 1:32.267, so he's got plenty in hand.